This is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. In the early hours of the 25th of April 2022, a neighbour called 999 after hearing a disturbance at Dolet and Denton's home on Dolet Road in Lewisham. Samantha and her mother Tanysha were also staying at the property at the time. The police attended and they got no response, so they forced entry into the house to ensure the well-being of everybody inside. They first found the body of Denton Burke. He was at the bottom of the stairs and he'd been stabbed to death. The bodies of Samantha, Tanysha and Dolet were all found in the kitchen, and all of the victims had been stabbed multiple times. Jaques was found upstairs in the bathroom. He was arrested and taken into custody, and while under arrest he made comments that included that he sacrificed them for the greater good. Joshua would go on to admit the killings of the 4 victims, and 3 of them were from the same family. He said that he blacked out and he suffered from a mental health condition that led to the deaths. Dave Nathan went to the scene at the time, and there was a large police presence and also a lot of media interest. There was tents erected outside and people described it as a bloodbath, and the community was devastated by what had occurred. Joshua was in custody for 80 hours before he was charged, and more than 100 hours of individual clips of body-worn cameras were painstakingly reviewed to show that Jacques' language and body language was like after the offence. Hours of CCTV were searched through and they recreated the movements that Jacques did on that day in the afternoon towards the evening before the murders. They showed that his behaviour appeared quite normal, and at an early stage Jacques admitted his involvement in the deaths but said that he was partially not responsible due to manslaughter by diminished responsibility. He said that he was suffering from a mental health condition and this impaired his ability to form a rational judgment and exercise self-control. Jacques would go on trial last year, and the prosecution expert reached the conclusion that Jacques had a history of cannabis misuse that caused him to enter a psychotic state. Jacques knew the effects that cannabis had on his mental health and he'd been told to stop taking it. They said in court that he refused to do so and he used cannabis shortly before the murder. During the trial also, forensic psychiatric evidence was produced and physical evidence further linked Jacques to the scene of the crime. These included fingerprints in blood as well as the recovery of the kitchen knife that was used to carry out all of the murders. When all of the evidence was heard by the jury, the verdict was that Jacques was guilty of murder. But in the statement that was released by the police today, he also states that he was guilty of manslaughter by diminished responsibility, which is very different to murder. They say that he's not responsible for it due to his mental health condition at the time, but the police have said that they proved that he was guilty of murder. So it's a very confusing statement they've put out, because obviously you can't be convicted of murder if there's an element of diminished responsibility. But nevertheless, Joshua Jacques, 29 years old from Lewisham, has been sentenced to 46 years in prison, minimum, for the murder of 4 people. The family of Dolet Hill have also spoken out about how this affected them and how traumatic it was at the time and what they have been through since. There was a lot of media coverage, as I said before, and MPs like Harriet Harman attended the scene, and the police gave press conferences on several occasions to document the progress of the investigation. And of course, we can't ignore the fact that they made claims that cannabis was related to this. His psychotic episodes were connected, and research has proven that there are links for some people developing psychotic disorders, and there is also a person's genetics that may play a role in the relationship of how it occurs. So that meaning that obviously some people can smoke cannabis and not be affected in the same way, but there is definitely a risk, and if you notice it in yourself or somebody else, you should definitely speak to somebody as soon as possible. I'm going to leave some links in the description below to services that may be able to help anybody that may be at risk or feel that somebody else is. Because at the end of the day, something like this could have been prevented if there was more intervention earlier on. Joshua was clearly suffering with a lot of different issues that have affected his mental health. And I want to send my condolences to the family of Dolet Hill, Denton Burke and Samantha Drummonds, and also Tanysha Ofori-Akuffo. I really appreciate everybody that has followed this story as well from when it occurred last year and kept up to the final conclusion. And as I said before, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace.
I'm Colin Wingrove, and I'm the BCU Commander responsible for policing in Southwark. I'd like to provide you a statement in relation to the awful event that happened at an address here last night. In the early hours of this morning, following a call from neighbours, officers forced entry into a house here in Dolet Road. Inside the house, they made a dreadful discovery of 4 people who had been stabbed. Despite the best efforts of officers